Linda says, I'm an executor to my late mum's estate. My two siblings are staying in the premises, both fully employed and one owning a house as well. She says that the one who owns a house is now renting that out as a secondary source of income. She says she has been trying to sell the premises and split the money from the proceeds of the sale between the five siblings, or the five people set to inherit from the mum's estate, the late mum's estate. They are refusing. She refers to her siblings who reside on the property, and they're refusing any potential buyers as well as agents to allow viewing of the premises. She says they don't talk to her either, and they don't take her calls. She wants to know, what can she do in this situation? Bruno?
Sure. So the first thing that we need to understand is conducting any sort of eviction on a property, for example, or any sort of control over a property, you need to be authorized to do so. Authorization stems from many different places, and different pieces of legislation and common law require different levels of authority. So for evictions, for example, it's either the owner of the property or the person in charge of the property. So from an eviction perspective, an executor is considered to be in charge of the property because they step into the shoes of the owner to a certain degree to try and administer the estate. So that gives her authority to evict in terms of pie. Her authority as executor also gives her rights for anything from collection of rent, collection of damages, access to the property, you name it. Because as executor, there's a power that's given to you to do everything necessary in order to be able to wind up the estate. And by virtue of that, you're entitled to do whatever is actually needed. Now, it's relevant that the other siblings have houses and aren't destitute, because you may find a situation, for example, where if you go to the Master of the High Court and you try to convince the Master of the High Court that an eviction of your siblings, especially like, whatever, if they're very young or they're rendered homeless, the master may have issues with that because it goes against the spirit of the will. But the fact that they've got houses and they're just staying there for free, they're not contributing towards their estate, and there's three other siblings that are suffering because of this, weighs very heavily against them. So from a solution perspective, there's a couple of things that can be done here. So I would, whether you're going to start the eviction proceedings now or whether you're going to do it after you sell the property, is a prerogative that you're going to need to make a decision on. The reason for this is, if you try and sell a property with unlawful occupiers in it, you're going to sell it for a lot less. And then your division amongst the five siblings is going to be minute. So it might not be a bad idea, especially considering that these are siblings. They've got places to stay. They're not necessarily financially badly off. It might not be a bad idea to take that position as an executor and start the eviction process. But obviously, it's cash flow dependent. If the estate doesn't have any money and you don't want to fund it yourself, then you may very well have to sell the property first and let the purchaser deal with the eviction themselves. So the eviction is definitely an option. And I would definitely consider that. I would definitely make a claim against them for damages, holding over, whatever you want to call it, basically unlawfully occupying the property, enjoying occupation of the property to the detriment of the estate. Everyone's suffering damages because of this. So I definitely lay a claim on the estate's behalf. And this obviously, you can recover the costs from the estate when the property gets sold. And then the big one here is to get this property sold as an application for access. So this was an application basically that we termed quite a few years ago, especially with sales and execution, where if a person buys a property on auction and you've got a very difficult occupier, previous owner sometimes on the property, there are applications you can actually bring to the court that are less intrusive or invasive than eviction applications. So when we often speak to people about evictions and we say that it takes months and the court has so many things to consider, this was our attempt at going, sure, we need some temporary relief and the eviction would be great, but the eviction would take too long, we can approach the court and ask the court for minimal, a reasonable access. We can even place security guards on the property if there's a risk of damage. I've even gotten maintenance and repair workers onto the property to repair a property that might, it might lose value because of being in a state of disrepair. Sorry, I disconnected there for a while. So that's the long and short of it. It's I would definitely consider an access application, and then coupled with an eviction and a claim for rent.
Thanks, Bruno.